Genesis chapter 26. Now there was a famine in the land, besides the former famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went to Gerar, to Abimelech, king of the Philistines. And the Lord appeared to him and said, Do not go down to Egypt, dwell in the land of which I shall tell you. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with you and will bless you. For to you and to your offspring I will give all these lands, and I will establish the oath that I swore to Abraham your father. I will multiply your offspring as the stars of heaven, and will give to your offspring all these lands. And in your offspring all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. So Isaac settled in Gerar. When the man of the place asked him about his wife, he said, She is my sister. For he feared to say, my wife, thinking, lest the man of the place should kill me because of Rebekah, because she was attractive in appearance. When he had been there a long time, Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked out of a window and saw Isaac laughing with Rebekah his wife. So Abimelech caught Isaac and said, Behold, she is your wife. How then could you say, She is my sister? Isaac said to him, Because I thought, lest I die because of her. Abimelech said, What is this you have done to us? One of the people might easily have lain with your wife, and you would have brought guilt upon us. So Abimelech warned all the people, saying, Whoever touches this man or his wife shall surely be put to death. And Isaac sowed in that land and reaped in the same year 100-fold. The Lord blessed him, and the man became rich, and gained more and more until he became very wealthy. He had possessions of flocks and herds, and many servants, so that the Philistines envied him. Now the Philistines had stopped and filled with earth all the wells that his father's servants had dug in the days of Abraham his father. And Abimelech said to Isaac, Go away from us, for you are much mightier than we. Verse 17. So Isaac departed from there, and encamped in the valley of Gerar, and settled there. And Isaac dug again the wells of the water that had been dug in the days of Abraham his father, which the Philistines had stopped after the death of Abraham. And he gave them names that his father had given them. But when Isaac's servants dug in the valley and found there a well of spring water, the herdsmen of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's herdsmen, saying, The water is ours. So he called the name of the well Esek, because they contended with him. Then they dug another well, and they quarreled over that also, so he called his name Sidna. And he moved from there and dug another well, and they did not quarrel over it. So he called his name Rehoboth, saying, For now the Lord has made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land. Verse 23. From there he went up to Beersheba, and the Lord appeared to him the same night and said, I am the God of Abraham your father. Fear not, for I am with you, and will bless you and multiply your offspring for my servant Abraham's sake. So he built an altar there, and called upon the name of the Lord, and pitched his tent there. And there Isaac's servants dug a well. Verse 26. When Abimelech went to him from Gerar, with Ahuzzath his advisor, and Phicol the commander of his army, Isaac said to them, Why have you come to me, saying that you hate me and have sent me away from you? They said, We see plainly that the Lord has been with you. So we said, Let there be a sworn pact between us, between you and us, and let us make a covenant with you, that you will do us no harm, just as we have not touched you, and have done to you nothing but good, and have sent you away in peace. You are now the blessed of the Lord. So he made them a feast, and they ate and drank. In the morning they rose early and exchanged oaths. And Isaac sent them on their way, and they departed from him in peace. That same day Isaac's servants came and told him about the well that they dug, and said to him, We have found water. He called it Sheba. Therefore the name of the city is Beersheba to this day. When Esau was 40 years old, he took Judith, the daughter of Beeri, the Hittite, to be his wife, and Basemath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, and they made life bitter for Isaac and Rebekah. This is the word of God.
Good morning. How are you guys this morning? How's the week? Chinese New Year is coming up. Have you started your spring cleaning? It's good time for us to clear up all the unused item, useless item, occupying precious space in our storeroom. I think that is a good thing about Chinese New Year. Okay, this morning before I deliver the sermon, let's have a quiz. Okay, this is the question. What do you think is the most embarrassing or shameful moment of a Christian? When we are found jobless or we are caught lying, cannot provide for our family, be poor, is not the same, right? But lying is. Lying is unacceptable for Christians because the root of all lies is insecurity. Isn't that true? We often think that I don't have enough. Other people's life is better. We feel insecure because of that. It is a distrusting God. It weakens a Christian's faith. And it destroys peace because such lies discourage us and divert us to unethical and even sometimes immoral behavior to self-protect. So let me ask you this morning, are you in financial need this morning? Are you living in a lie and thinking of how then can I turn around? You know, in Genesis chapter 26 that it went out this morning to us, it tells us that Isaac had both poverty and lying problem. So the question is it possible for Isaac facing these two problems to turn around? Is it possible or impossible? Well, let us look at it. Last Sunday, we learned from Genesis 35 that we are elected. We are chosen by God's sovereign grace to be His children unconditionally. That is very liberating, as I testified. Because we do nothing and God does everything to save us. Even weak character like Abraham, Isaac and Jacob are also can be chosen to be God's people. So the focus is not the characters of those who are called, but the God who did the calling. So we have nothing to boast, but we have everything. God gives us everything to rejoice and to thank Him. Now, so this morning, Genesis 26 will give us a very comforting message of God's sovereign grace. Continue relentlessly to rule over the life of believer, in this case the life of Isaac, to mature his faith and to bring him to a new place of blessings and faith. In spite of the Bible telling us that Isaac is elected by God instead of Ishmael. You remember Deacon Ji Hong preached to us last Sunday? Yet Ishmael and his descendants are numerous, rich and established. On the other hand, Isaac, the elected one, has only 2 sons. And worst of all, he was hit by famine, as chapter 26 tells us. So just like Christians who lost their job and unable to provide for their family. Now in the eyes of people, and in the heart, in this case in the heart of Isaac, when he is hit by famine, it looks like he's not going to make it. It looks more possible that Ishmael is the favored one, not Isaac, isn't it? Christians caught in this kind of situation may be tempted to look at the prosperity and the good life of other people and envy them, and may even tempted to follow their way of life, especially when we see our bank account is running low. Therefore, any suggestion at this point of time, any suggestion to trust God to provide is hard to accept regularly. This reminds me of my doctor friend when he felt called to give up his lucrative career as a doctor to serve God full-time. His wife struggled. His wife struggled a lot. Indeed, any one of us will struggle, isn't it? It is understandable because we are like Isaac. We are like Isaac. On the first sign of famine, Isaac heads for Egypt. But God redirects him to Beersheba. Look at the picture here. This is where it stands. In the first 5 verses, it tells us that Isaac followed his father Abraham's footsteps. Remember when we studied Genesis chapter 12, when Abraham arrived at this place, there was a famine, the same type of famine, and Abraham headed for Egypt to take shelter. But Egypt represents the world. Why? Because it has plenty of supply, but it is not a place of blessing that God intended for Isaac. So God speaks to Isaac personally and tells him not to go to Egypt, but stay in Gerar. Not only that, God promised him of his presence. God promised him of his protections. God also reminds Isaac of the purpose of calling him. Isaac, I call you is to bless you with many offspring and make you a blessing to all nations. So God not only do that, God also reminded Isaac that his father Abraham has obeyed when God called him. And it is now up to him to decide. You see, when life becomes difficult, our anxious heart tend to tell us to run to the world for help, instead of listening to God and trust in His promises. We look for what can meet our immediate needs, and what is important for long term is usually ignored. Isn't that true? Just like Esau, when he was hungry, as we are told in chapter 25, he is willing. He is ever willing to give up his birthright for something to eat. Esau would let his spiritual life to slide down, in other words, just to fill his stomach. So therefore, the lesson for us is that in crisis, when going is tough in life, we must remember God's promises. We must remember God's purpose of calling us and trust Him. So let me ask you this morning, has God said to you not to take up that job? Has God said to you, don't spend time and energy on the unholy and unfruitful activities? Are you struggling, my friends? Are you struggling with your personal preference and God's redirection? How do we hear God clearly? I would like to suggest to you that in order for us to really hear God's voice clearly is to empty our hearts. Listen carefully. If we do not empty our hearts, you see, in our hearts, there's always a lot of noise, a lot of sinful suggestions, a lot of other alternatives except God. When we empty our heart of all these things, then we will be able to hear God's voice clearly. God's voice will be able to sound out clear and loud and clear in our hearts and in our mind. And therefore His choice may be our choice. Like Isaac, he listened to God. You know what happened? Later, he will learn that his fear is unfounded. In verses 6 to 11, tells us how God will remove insecurity in Isaac. God exposes the sin. This is how it goes. God exposes the sins of Isaac. And then God showed him wonderful grace and to turn him around. In spite of God's promises that we saw in the first 5 verses, Isaac falls into sin almost immediately. What sin is that? The sins of believing a lie that God can't protect him. You see, Isaac, maybe like many of us, he wants to obey God. He really wants to. But he fears for his safety in Gerar. You see, we must acknowledge that when we are in a foreign country, a foreign land, there is no place for us to play hero, right? But to take necessary precaution, to be safe, especially if there have been many stories of theft cases. I'm sure you have heard of this. The tourists sometimes will tie their money back on their necks, and some will hide under the garment. However, Isaac's sin is not being afraid or a coward, but not trusting what God has just promised him. That is his sin. Isaac employed his own idea to secure his safety. I'm sure for us on the high side here, we will be telling Isaac, you must be out of your mind. How can God fulfill his promise of multiplying your offspring as numerous as the stars of heaven if he let you be killed? That is not possible. You see, maybe Isaac, like many of us, has only mentally believed, but in his heart of heart, he is still doubtful about God's power to really protect him. Knowing that there is also very high possibility or probability that they will kill him and take his wife. And that is why when people ask him, he said, no, this is not my wife. But this shows very clearly that Isaac's faith, it is still immature. And it is not good. It is not good for the head of God's family to be like that. It is not good for Christians who believe in God to have such an immature faith. So like his father Abraham, Isaac commits the sins of distrusting God's protection. In fact, Abraham 2 times, in Genesis 12 and Genesis 20, he lied about the status of his wife Sarah. Isaac's way of securing safety by denying, listen carefully, by denying his relationship with Rebekah as husband and wife, not only dishonored God's gift to him, but also put her in grave danger. Dishonesty, dishonor God, and create evil and perpetuate it. That is something we have to take a serious note on this. But in spite of Isaac's foolishness here, we see the evidence of God's mercy and sovereign grace that is protecting Isaac. So there are 2 pieces of evidence here. First, in verse 8 and in verse 10, it tells us that it is after a long while. Isaac was able to live in this life for a long time, and nobody have touched Rebekah. It was revealed by Abimelech, the king of the land. He said that any man, look, any man could have done that. It is a miracle, isn't it? And the second piece of evidence is in verse 11. This king not only exposed the sins of Isaac, knowing his predicament, he warned his people of death penalty if anyone touches Isaac or Rebekah. This is certainly not due to luck or fate or by chance, that people would like to say. This is clearly the grace and the mercy of God at work to protect Isaac, to protect Rebekah, and to protect the people of Gerar as well. In other words, listen carefully. You look at this part, what the king said, King Abimelech said. It implies that God alone can keep Isaac and his family safe without the help of Abimelech. True or false? But the question is why God will move Abimelech to expose Isaac's sin, and not only that, to provide security. It is because God is bringing Isaac's heart to trust in him completely. Sometimes God uses non-Christians to wake up the Christians who are foolish enough to trust their own thinking and to follow God's instructions. And surely, as you look at the whole chapter, this must be Isaac's most embarrassing or the most shameful moment in his life. As the head of God's family, Isaac was rebuked by the head of a heathen king for lying. You see, Isaac's double life, untruthfulness, is rebuked by a heathen king called Abimelech. And here, it shows us that this heathen king is someone who cares more for the safety of his people as well as Isaac's family than Isaac. So the lesson for us is this. When we think we can be smarter than God, listen carefully, when we begin to think that we can be smarter than God, we become foolish. This is exactly being displayed here, demonstrated by our friend Isaac. Here we learn that security and survivability is made possible by God's mercy, certainly, not human ingenuity or even human power. Right? So as God's elect, Isaac should have trusted God. Isaac should have lived responsibly and honorably. However, Isaac definitely cannot do that unless he empty his brain. Now just now was empty his heart. Now he should empty his brain and see for himself his own sins and then come to repentance. Why we need to empty our brain is because I think we always think that there is a better way instead of accepting God's way as the better way. So how about you, my dear friends? Are you living a lie? Are you still doing something you know that it is wrong? Do you hide? Do you have to hide your sins from people every day? Are you having an affair? Do you take out your wedding ring and pretend that you are still single, knowing that it will destroy relationship? Don't be like Isaac. Don't wait for God to expose your sin. Set yourself free now. Come clean with God and embrace His grace. Sin of lying, listen carefully, sin of lying cripples us. Grace of God enables us. Grace gives us strength to save us from ourselves. Sins leave us guilty and unable to be what we are supposed to be and do what we're supposed to do as Christians. Do you know that God rules over all things for our sake all the time? God relentlessly pursue after our sins until all sins are dead and we live forever. God is using grace to unzip us and get inside us, get into the bottom of our heart and enable us to desire, to think, to do, and to say things and do things that fit His purpose and plan. You see, God could have punished Isaac at this moment for his sin. How He can do it? May I suggest that He can just allow King Abimelech to chase Isaac away. I don't want this kind of troublemaker in my country or in my land. But instead, look carefully, God makes Abimelech to allow Isaac to continue to stay and provide protection. You see, God's forgiveness for Isaac in this instant of lying, such a great sin, for being a disgrace as a God elect. The whole purpose of this is to draw Isaac's heart to love and with thankfulness to Him. And in his love for God, Isaac will desire to do things and say things that are pleasing to Him, just like Christ, who died to take our punishment and give us blessing of eternal life. All this done is to draw us and to open our eyes to see that God really, truly loves us. This is what we call grace upon grace. So with the fear of God's punishment gone, fear for danger gone, here comes another form of fear, if there's any. Do you know what fear is it now that come into the life of Isaac after this episode? Listen carefully. Isaac henceforth will fear that he does not have what it takes to live what he should be as God chosen people. Isaac will learn this truth later when he trusted God, and God prospered him. Verses 12 to 33. God will do two more things. He will prosper him, and then he will use hostility of the Philistine in Gerar to move Isaac to a place of blessing that he intended. Here what we see from verses 12 onwards is that with the safety assured by the king, Isaac is now back on track. He's now back on track with God, and God made him so wealthy, as the verse here said, that he becomes even more powerful than the Philistines. Now what is God doing? Isn't that God want to move Isaac all the way to Beersheba? No. Is he going to stay here and make him prosper? It is not. So what is God doing? As the scene unfolds, God actually created this situation to move Isaac from Gerar to Beersheba. Notice that the wealth and the power of Isaac invite nothing but jealousy and hostility of the Philistine. Now in those days, stopping or taking over someone's wealth is a declaration of war. But somehow Isaac did not fight them with his wealth and his power. Why? Every time they did a well, they were quarrel. It is because of God's grace and forgiveness towards Isaac of his sins that has prepared Isaac for this. Isaac is able to deny the temptations. I'm sure all of us will have that. If we were to be in his position of power and wealth, come on, we will fight you. We will stay and continue to prosper. But he did not. He did not use any force. He did not use any violence until the hostility somehow stopped at the third well. Isaac's fear is not physical danger. Isaac's fear is that his life, he feared that his life is not pleasing to God. Notice that King Abimelech not only asked Isaac to leave this place, you are more mightier than we. Not only that, this king also never stopped the herdsmen from harassing Isaac. Why there is a change? A person who grant him protection suddenly abandoned all this thing. Where is the explanation? Notice that by the time the harassment stopped, where was Isaac? Isaac has arrived at Beersheba. Where is Beersheba? Beersheba is where exactly God wants him to be. How do we know? Because as soon as Isaac arrived at Beersheba, the Lord appeared to him to affirm his presence with Isaac. And then, after this, God sent the king Abimelech to seek peace treaty. What is the lesson here? The lesson here is this: that it is God's grace, not anyone's doing. It is God's grace that empowers us to live responsibly and honorably. Like Isaac, God will give us wonderful experience of Himself. God wants us to experience and acknowledge His presence and His power and His grace. You see, when we are far from comfort, we are sure of God's presence. That is where we see in the life of Isaac. When we are most disappointed with men, When we are most disappointed with the circumstances we are in, God's mercy most near. In God's mercy, Isaac was brought from famine to favor. And now, in fact, he is famous. Isaac is away from Egypt, but he is nearer to the promised land. Beersheba is nearer to the promised land, the land of Canaan, than in Egypt. And he is now enjoying the peace with God and peace with men. You see, when Isaac arrived at Beersheba, not only he realizes God favored him, but people of Gerar too. We see here when Isaac was treated by men with unkindness, God is faithful. God is gracious to him. God make room for Isaac. Verse 22 say that. And Isaac realized it. He acknowledged that the Lord has made room. Look at verse 22. The Lord, L-O-R-D, has made room. And Isaac, who is not so conscious about God's presence and protection and promises, here is a changed person. And when Isaac moved on to Beersheba, tired and exhausted, trying to move away and away from the harassment, the same night, the Bible tells us, God brought comfort, words of comfort to his soul, affirming and confirming. Look at verse 24. And Isaac was moved to worship him in verse 25. Is this your experience? Have you got this kind of experience? Okay, when you are so disappointed with people, with circumstances, you have to move, you have to make changes. You have to give way, you have to endure, you have to be patient. But finally you realize that actually God is moving you to a place of special blessing. And what follows after Beersheba is the Philistines speak well of Isaac and initiate peace back. Listen carefully. They initiate to have peace with Isaac, God's chosen one. Verse 26 to 31. In verse 28, this is what they say to Isaac. We see plainly, in other words, we see clearly, that the Lord has been with you. So we said, let there be a sworn pact between us, between you and us, and let us make a covenant with you. Come on! How can this thing happen? What miracle is that? What have they seen? Maybe we should ask ourselves on this. Let's examine what actually these people have seen in the life of Isaac, that they can say it openly, that I saw your God has been with you. And now they want to have peace with Isaac. Perhaps it is not stated here. What they have seen is that God, truly, God of Isaac, really have shown his mercy of safekeeping Rebekah. Remember, after a long time, she was kept safe in a dangerous place. And Isaac prospered. Isaac's character have changed. And everywhere he goes, when he dig the well, there is water. That is a desolate place, a valley of Gerar. That is a place that is hopeless. But he prospered. Where are all these miracles coming from? Look at this man. He's so frightened, so covered, so fearful. He has to cheat and lie in order to survive. But look at him, patiently, rich and powerful. But he will not use his power to create violence and to secure his safety and position. They talk about Yahweh. L-O-R-D in capital letter means Yahweh, the God of Israel. This reminds us of what the Bible says. When a man's way pleases the Lord, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him. Proverbs chapter 16 verse 7 says, king's hearts are in God's hands, and when he pleases, he can turn them to favor his people. You see, Isaac did not become a bully when God prospered his labor in Gerar. And when the Philistines come and seek peace, he made peace with them. God's children are peacemakers. Isaac did not count on all the unkindness they have done to him. But here we see that Isaac freely entered into friendship with these people. Of course, we must be on guard when we deal with people who have acted unfairly. But the Bible teaches us, listen carefully, but the Bible teaches us to be good neighbors. As Christians, we ought to be good neighbors. And as much as we are able, we are to live peaceably with all men and always act honorably. As Deacon Gregory read and prayed this morning on the book of Romans. So at this time, as Isaac looked back from the time when famine hit him to now standing on the land of Beersheba, he could see clearly that God, listen carefully, God is the only reliable source of peace and power. Isaac can never say that he knows how God did it, but Isaac can certainly say that he knows God loves him. So there's a big lesson for us here. Peace and survivability is not, listen carefully, peace and survivability is not the absence of war, not the absence of sickness, not the absence of poverty. The peace and survivability is based on the presence of God and His promises. And I hope this will encourage us to obey God's redirections of our life by trusting that God will put us in a place of blessing. Move as He said. You know, my doctor's friend that I shared just now, he actually answered God's call, gave up his doctor career. But today, he is still a doctor. He's a doctor in the missions field, in the mountain, well respected by non-Christians, including the Buddhist monk, including the village chief. They are all non-Christian. So you see, when God moves us, is to move us to a place that really will be a blessing for ourselves and for other people. However, as the story goes, while God has been showing favor to Isaac with His mercy and His blessing for many years, his elder son Esau did not seem to be impressed. He is not appreciating it. Esau prefers something else and frustrates his parents. Verse 34 and 35. As we see God's people, God's family, Isaac's family, from famine to favored positions, glorifying Him, enjoying His peace and prosperity here, right in his own house. The Bible tells us when Esau was 40 years old, 40 years old, not 4 years old, he took Judith, the daughter of Bereah, the Hittite, to be his wife. He didn't stop there. And Basemath, the daughter of Elon, another Hittite. And what happened? Verse 35 tells us that, and they, together, Esau and the two wives, make life bitter for Isaac and Rebekah. How Esau's two wives make life bitter for Isaac and Rebekah? Of course, they are Hittites. They do not worship Yahweh. They worship their own God. You see, we often think that living in a godly family will lead us to live a godly life. But here, Esau, after 40 years of witnessing God's provision and protection, he chose deliberately, intentionally to make life difficult for his parents. He did not see the altar of that Isaac have set up and worship of God any attraction at all. He is more interested in pursuing what he likes. Esau married 2 wives, not 1, to be a snare to his parents. As we are informed by Genesis 25, that Esau is a man who does not take the best things that God has bestowed on him seriously. He sold his birthright, a spiritual blessing for a bowl of porridge, which has no eternal value. So here, Esau does not see God's promised blessing that he should or he would cling on, like his father, Isaac. So therefore, God's blessing of protections and provision is no guarantee of obedience in the family of God's people. How sad. How can it be? Impossible. But it happened. So therefore, the lesson for us is this. Putting personal preferences over God's promises is a snare to the peace in God's family. I think we ought to learn a lesson here, not only in our own family, but also in the church as God's family. We can disturb the peace easily and become a snare. So don't be surprised by such a thorn in the flesh in the family of God. Because they are Christians, falling for the world, seeking immediate gratification instead of a long-term thinking of long-term consequences. There can be no peace in the family. And we will see more. Next Sunday, we will see more in the next chapter, chapter 27. So in conclusion, here we see in the life journey of Isaac, God overruled all adversary and God prospered him so that people could see God through his life. Isaac could not see that far, but God will make it happen. Like us, we really cannot see what is going to happen this year, what is going to happen next year, but God already will. So let us trust God. Difficult times are times for the experience of God's presence and God's mercy. If we were to listen to His word, and if we were to live responsibly and honorably. So therefore the truth for life is this. Lasting peace, if we wish to have, if we desire to have, true blessing is in God's hand, not ours. So for applications for this morning, there are 2 interrelated. Number 1, we have to guard our hearts, because it is where everything will go wrong. We have to guard our hearts against dependence on the world. We have to use the power and the weapon of prayer. Like in our responsive reading in Philippians chapter 4, from verse 4 to verse 7, Paul exhorts us to pray until the peace of Christ takes over. Listen carefully. Pray until the peace of Christ that we cannot even understand takes over. It's just like the life of Isaac. Praying is listening. Because when we pray, when we seek God and depend on Him, the peace of Christ will communicate to us. the Holy Spirit will minister to our hearts. That's why Paul here says, let your reasonableness be known to everyone. The Lord is at hand. In other words, the Lord is all the time attending to us. He wants to bless us. He wants to help us. He wants to give us the power to get out of the situation that we are in. God wants to bless us. God wants to show us His grace. God do not want to see us to be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and request or supplication, with thanksgiving, you can even, Paul here said that even you can thank God beforehand. Why? Because we must have the faith to believe that whatever we pray, He will answer. And secondly, live honorably. God wants us to live responsibly, honorably, in spite of all the difficult situations, so that He can bless us, and therefore we can draw people to Him. Here Paul said that whatever you heard, whatever you see, practice them. In verse 8 and 9, in the responsive reading, he said, do the right things. What are the things? Whatever is true, honorable, just, pure, lovely, commendable, excellent, worthy of praise, think, and then practice. Practice this thing. And you know what he said? And the God of peace will be with you. The way to peace and survivability is therefore possible. It is possible if we simply trust and obey what God says. Let us pray. Eternal God and Heavenly Father, forgive us for our unbelief. We thank you for this part of the life of